When Dad asked that question, I felt the air leave my lungs. "So, did the money help you out?" he said, smiling like everything was normal. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. The table went quiet. I blinked at him, confused. "What money?" I asked slowly. Mom's hand trembled as she reached for her glass. Her eyes darted toward Dad, then to my brother, Ethan, who suddenly found his plate very interesting. Something felt wrong. My heart started racing, but I tried to keep my voice calm. Dad's smile faded. "The $75,000 I sent you months ago," he said, looking puzzled. "Didn't your mom tell you?" I stared at him, not sure if I'd heard right. $75,000? My throat went dry. For a moment, I couldn't even speak. I looked at Mom, hoping she'd clear it up, but she just stared down at her napkin, silent. That silence told me everything I needed to know. For months, I had been drowning, working double shifts, selling my old car, skipping meals just to pay rent. And the whole time, Dad thought he had saved me. He thought the money had helped. I could feel something inside me break. "Dad," I said quietly, "I never got any money." He blinked in disbelief. "That can't be right. I transferred it to your mom's account like we discussed. She said she'd send it to you that same day." The words hung in the air like smoke. Ethan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Mom's face had gone pale. My chest burned as I remembered all the times I'd called her crying, asking for help, and she'd said, "We just don't have anything extra right now, honey. You'll manage." I felt sick. Dad's expression changed. The warmth in his eyes turned cold as he looked at her. "Linda," he said, his voice low, "where did that money go?" Mom's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her hand shook so badly she spilled her wine. Ethan tried to laugh it off, saying, "Maybe there's some mistake, Dad," but his voice cracked halfway through. Dad's tone hardened. "Ethan, do you know anything about this?" Ethan froze. His eyes flicked toward Mom, silently begging her to say something. That was all it took. Dad leaned back, staring at both of them like he was seeing strangers. I sat there, my stomach twisting, realizing just how deep their lies ran. Mom finally spoke, her voice shaking. "It's not what you think, Robert. I was just trying to help Ethan's business. He needed it more at the time." The room went dead silent. Dad's face went red. "You stole from your daughter," he said, his voice trembling with anger. I sat there in shock, staring at the people I used to call family. That dinner started as a reunion. It ended with the truth none of us were ready to face. After I lost my job, everything in my life started to fall apart. I had worked at that marketing firm for almost 5 years, but one morning, I walked in and was told the company was cutting costs. I packed up my desk, smiled through tears, and told myself I'd find something soon. But soon never came. Months passed, and the bills didn't stop. I tried to stay positive at first. I updated my resume, sent out dozens of applications, and went to interviews that led nowhere. My savings disappeared faster than I expected. I sold my car just to keep my apartment and buy groceries. When that money ran out, I started taking random side jobs, babysitting, grocery deliveries, anything that paid a little. I remember calling my parents one night after another rejection. I told them I was struggling, and my mom said, "We wish we could help, honey, but things are tight right now. Your dad's got medical bills, and you know how the market is." She sounded so convincing that I didn't question it. I believed her. I always did. Dad would sometimes call to check in, asking if I was doing okay. He offered advice, told me to keep trying, and said things would get better. His voice always carried a warmth that reminded me of how supportive he'd been my whole life. That's why I never thought for a second that they might be hiding something. There were nights when I sat in the dark, wrapped in a blanket, eating ramen noodles because I couldn't afford real meals. My landlord threatened eviction twice, and I barely managed to pay him with borrowed money. My pride took a hit every day, but I told myself it was temporary, that my family loved me, and that love was enough. Sometimes I'd hear my brother Ethan brag about his struggles with his small business. He always seemed to land on his feet somehow. New clothes, new truck, expensive dinners. I assumed he was just lucky or better at managing his money. Mom used to say, "Ethan's got a family to take care of. You're single. You'll be fine." I tried to let that go, but it hurt. I didn't know that, months earlier, my dad had sent $75,000 to Mom to give to me. He thought he was saving me. Meanwhile, I was counting coins to buy gas. I was crying alone in my apartment, thinking my parents had nothing to give. Looking back now, I can't believe how blind I was. Every moment of struggle, every night I went hungry, It could have been avoided. But Mom let me suffer while pretending to care. I didn't know it then, but her silence wasn't ignorance. It was choice. And that choice changed everything once the truth finally came out. Dad had always trusted Mom with everything, especially when it came to money. He wasn't the type to double-check transfers or ask for receipts. He believed that if he told her to help me, she would do it. That trust was his mistake. When he sent the $75,000, he thought it was going directly to me. He told Mom it was to help me get back on my feet after losing my job. He didn't mention it to me because he wanted it to be a surprise, something that would make me feel supported. But instead of transferring the money, Mom decided to handle it differently. She had always been protective of Ethan, my older brother. No matter what he did, she found a way to excuse it. Even when he dropped out of college or got into debt from bad business choices, she said he just needed a little push. Dad used to argue that Ethan needed to stand on his own 2 feet, but Mom never listened. To her, Ethan could do no wrong. When the money came in, she saw an opportunity. She told Ethan about it and said, "Your father sent this to help your sister, but I think you need it more. You have a family and responsibilities." Ethan didn't hesitate. He agreed and took it, promising he'd pay it back someday. Of course, that day never came. Instead of using it to save his business, Ethan spent it like it was free money. He bought a new black truck, took his wife on a vacation to Florida, and even posted photos online showing off their success. Mom told everyone he'd finally gotten his business on track. She smiled proudly whenever someone mentioned how well he was doing. Meanwhile, I was struggling to pay rent, completely unaware that the money meant for me had gone straight to him. Mom never said a word. Whenever Dad asked how I was doing, she'd tell him, "She's fine." The money helped a lot. She made sure the story sounded believable, and Dad never questioned her. What hurts most isn't just that she took the money. It's that she watched me fall apart and didn't flinch. I'd call her crying, telling her I couldn't keep up with bills. She'd respond with fake sympathy and tell me to be patient. All while knowing that my brother was driving around in a new truck bought with money that was supposed to save me. It wasn't just a lie. It was a betrayal that ran deep. She chose one child over the other, not out of love, but out of habit. She had always favored Ethan, but this time she crossed a line I could never forgive. When the truth came out at dinner later, it wasn't just about the money. It was about every lie that built the illusion of a family that never really existed. Mom didn't just steal from me. She destroyed the trust that held us together. It had been months since I last had dinner with my parents. Things had been distant for a while. After losing my job and barely getting by, I didn't visit much. I didn't want them to see how rough things had become. Then, out of the blue, Dad called one Thursday evening. His voice was warm and full of energy. "Hey, sweetheart," he said. "How about Sunday dinner? I want us all together again. Feels like it's been too long." He said it was time for new beginnings. I didn't really know what that meant, but I said yes. I missed him, and despite everything, I still wanted to believe my family could feel normal again. That Sunday, I arrived early. The house looked the same as always, neat, quiet, and full of old memories. The smell of roast chicken filled the air. Mom greeted me with a quick hug and that usual polite smile she gave when she wanted to hide something. She looked more nervous than happy, though I couldn't figure out why. Ethan and his wife showed up soon after. He walked in like he owned the place, laughing loudly and talking about his new business ventures. He wore a gold watch and had that smug confidence that used to annoy me. I tried to ignore him. Dad seemed proud, nodding along to Ethan's stories about hard work paying off. I sat across from Mom at the table. She kept pouring herself glass after glass of wine, laughing too hard at Ethan's jokes. There was something off about her. She looked restless, distracted, almost afraid of being quiet for too long. Every time Dad mentioned how happy he was that everyone was finally together, she would smile a little too wide and take another sip. Dinner started like any other. We passed the dishes around, made small talk, and pretended everything was fine. I told them I was still looking for work, but trying to stay hopeful. Dad nodded and told me I'd find something soon. Mom just mumbled, "You will," barely making eye contact. The mood in the room felt strange. Dad was in high spirits, Ethan was bragging nonstop, and Mom looked like she was holding her breath the entire time. I couldn't tell why, but something deep inside me felt uneasy. It was the kind of tension you can't see, but you can feel sitting heavy in the air. I remember glancing at the clock, thinking how quickly I could leave without seeming rude. I had no idea that this dinner, this simple family meal, was about to change everything. I thought we were there to reconnect, maybe laugh a little. But behind every smile at that table, there was a secret waiting to explode. And before the night was over, it did. Dinner had been going smoothly until that one question changed everything. We were almost done eating when Dad leaned toward me, smiling proudly like a man who'd done something good. The room was filled with laughter, forks scraping plates, and Ethan talking about his upcoming business trip. I was tired but content. For a brief second, it almost felt like family again. Then Dad spoke. "So, did the money I sent help you get back on your feet?" The sound of his voice felt normal at first, but his words didn't make sense. I stopped chewing and looked up. "What money?" I asked. My voice came out calm, but my heart started to beat faster. The laughter died instantly. Ethan froze mid-bite. Mom's hand shook as she slowly set her wine glass down. The color drained from her face. Dad's smile faded, confusion flickering across his expression as he looked from me to her. "The money," he said again, his tone softer now, like he thought I was joking. "The $75,000 I sent you through your mom. I figured it helped you settle your bills and get back on track." I blinked, trying to process what he said. 75,000? My stomach twisted. I felt dizzy. "Dad," I said carefully, "I never got any money." The silence that followed was unbearable. I could hear the ticking clock in the hallway. Ethan shifted in his chair. Mom's eyes stayed glued to the tablecloth, her jaw tight. Dad's brows furrowed, his voice sharpening. "Linda," he said slowly, "you transferred it to her account, right?" Mom didn't answer. She just sat there, gripping the edge of the table like it might steady her. Dad's tone hardened. "Linda." Finally, she looked up. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. I could see panic in her eyes. Ethan reached for his water glass, but spilled some, his hands unsteady. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice breaking a little. I looked between them, hoping someone would just tell me it was a mistake, a misunderstanding. But it wasn't. Dad straightened in his seat, the warmth gone from his face. "I sent that money 6 months ago," he said slowly, looking straight at Mom. "You told me you sent it to her right away." Mom swallowed hard, glancing at Ethan, who avoided her eyes. "Robert," she whispered, "maybe we can talk about this later." "No," he said sharply. "We'll talk about it now." The room felt smaller with every second. My hands were cold, my chest tight. I could sense the truth hanging in the air, waiting to be spoken. Ethan wouldn't look at me. Mom was shaking. And Dad. Dad looked like a man realizing he'd been betrayed by the people he trusted most. That's when I knew. Whatever secret they'd been hiding was about to come out, and our family would never be the same after that moment. Dad's face changed in a way I had never seen before. At first, he looked confused, like he was trying to give Mom the benefit of the doubt. But the longer she sat there in silence, the more that confusion turned into something else, anger. His voice dropped low, almost shaking. "Linda, tell me exactly what happened to that money." Mom forced a nervous smile. "Robert, I think there's been some kind of mix-up," she said quickly. "Maybe the transfer didn't go through the right way. I'll check it tomorrow." Dad cut her off. "Don't lie to me," he said sharply. "I'm not stupid. I have the receipt." He pulled his phone from his pocket, scrolling through his banking app with shaking hands. I could see the glow of the screen reflecting in his glasses. After a few seconds, he found what he was looking for and turned the phone toward her. "Right there," he said, his voice full of disbelief. "I sent it to your account on March 12th. You said you forwarded it to Alyssa that same day." I leaned forward and saw it clearly. $75,000. My name in the notes section. And Mom's account listed as the receiver. My stomach twisted. The air felt heavy. Mom's face went pale. She didn't even look at the screen. "Robert, please," she whispered. "It's not what you think." But I could already see the truth written all over her face. Ethan shifted in his seat, avoiding everyone's eyes. The gold watch on his wrist caught the light from the candles. For a second, I couldn't look away from it. My chest tightened. That watch, the one he'd bragged about getting as a reward for his business success, suddenly looked different. It looked like proof. Dad noticed it too. His eyes narrowed. "That watch," he said, pointing at Ethan. "You bought that right around March, didn't you?" Ethan froze. He opened his mouth, then shut it again. Mom finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Robert, please don't do this in front of everyone. Then tell me the truth." Dad's voice was sharp now. "Did you give her the money or not?" Mom stared down at her plate, her silence answering for her. I sat there, barely breathing. My mind flashed back to the months I spent struggling, working long hours, selling my car, wondering why my parents didn't care enough to help. And the whole time, the money was sitting in my mother's hands. Or worse, in Ethan's. Dad slammed his hand on the table, making the glasses rattle. "You lied to me, Linda," he said quietly, his voice full of hurt. "You lied to both of us." No one spoke after that. The candles flickered, casting shadows across faces that suddenly looked unfamiliar. I looked at Mom, then at Ethan, and for the first time, I realized I wasn't sitting with my family anymore. I was sitting with strangers who had betrayed me. Dad turned his attention to Ethan, his voice cold and steady. "Did you know about this?" he asked. Ethan's face went pale. He looked down at his plate, fidgeting with his fork like a kid caught doing something wrong. "Ethan," Dad repeated, louder this time. "Answer me." Ethan let out a shaky breath. "Dad, please, it's not that simple." Dad's jaw tightened. "Then make it simple," he said. Ethan looked at Mom, silently begging her to jump in and protect him like she always did. But she stayed quiet this time, staring down at her wine glass as if hiding inside it. After a long pause, Ethan finally spoke. "Mom told me you sent that money," he said softly. "She said you wanted to help me more because I have a family to take care of. She said Alyssa would understand, that she didn't need it as badly." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. My eyes filled with tears, but I didn't let them fall. I stared at him, trying to understand how my own brother could say something like that and still live with himself. "You knew I was struggling," I whispered. "You knew I couldn't even pay rent." Ethan couldn't meet my eyes. "I thought you'd be fine," he muttered. "Mom said you'd find another job soon." Dad pushed his chair back, his voice shaking with fury. "You mean to tell me you both decided this behind my back? You took the money I sent for your sister, without telling me, and spent it." Ethan tried to defend himself. "I was going to pay it back, Dad. My business was just in a rough spot. I didn't think it'd blow up like this." Dad slammed his hand on the table again. "It's not about the money, Ethan. It's about the lies." The room went quiet. All you could hear was the sound of my mom's uneven breathing. I looked at her, hoping she'd say something, anything, to make this make sense. But she just sat there, lips pressed tight, tears in her eyes. That was when everything finally clicked for me. The favoritism, the excuses, the constant way she'd take Ethan's side over mine, it had always been there. I'd just ignored it, thinking she loved us both in her own way. But this wasn't love. This was betrayal wrapped in motherhood. "Mom," I said quietly, "you watched me struggle. You watched me cry. And you still chose him." Her voice cracked when she answered. "I was only trying to protect him. He has a wife and 2 kids. You're stronger, Alyssa. You can handle things better." I let out a hollow laugh. "You didn't protect him. You ruined both of us." Dad's face was red with anger. He stood up, his voice trembling. "I can't believe I ever trusted either of you." That night, the truth spilled across that dinner table like broken glass, cutting everyone who had tried to hide it. And as I sat there watching the people I loved fall apart, I realized that some families aren't destroyed by strangers. They're destroyed from within. Dad completely lost it. The calm, patient man I had known my whole life was gone. His voice rose, trembling with a mix of anger and heartbreak. "All these years," he shouted, pointing at Mom, "I trusted you with everything. Every paycheck, every decision, every plan. And this is what you've been doing behind my back." Mom tried to speak, but he didn't let her. "Don't," he barked. "I'm done listening to your excuses." His eyes were full of hurt, but his voice carried years of frustration that he had never let out before. "You've been manipulating me, Linda. I see it now. The secret accounts, the missing money, the stories that never made sense. You've been lying for years." Mom's lips trembled. "Robert, please, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," he cut in. "You've been favoring Ethan since the day they were born. You've always made excuses for him. Always made Alyssa feel like she had to earn your love while he got it for free." Ethan jumped in then, his tone defensive. "Dad, stop talking to her like that. She was just trying to help." Dad turned to him, his eyes blazing. "Help? She stole from your sister to bail you out. She turned you into a selfish man who thinks lying is acceptable." He pointed toward the door. "You can leave too. Both of you." The room went completely silent. Ethan stared at him like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You're kicking us out?" he asked, his voice cracking. "Yes," Dad said firmly. "You've both crossed a line that can't be fixed tonight." Mom stood up, tears streaming down her face. "Robert, this is your family," she cried. No, he said, his voice low but steady. This was a lie pretending to be a family. I sat frozen, tears running down my face. It felt unreal watching my parents, people I thought would always stand together, fall apart like this. Ethan tried one last time to argue, saying Dad was overreacting, but Dad's tone stayed sharp. Out, he said, pointing toward the front door. Before I say something I can't take back. Mom looked at me before she left. Her eyes were red, full of something between guilt and shame. But I didn't say a word. I couldn't. There was nothing left to say. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, Ethan following behind her, slamming the door on their way out. The sound echoed through the house. Then there was only silence. Dad sank back into his chair, rubbing his face with both hands. I could hear him whisper, "How could she do this?" I sat across from him, tears still falling. The truth had finally come out, and everything that had been hidden for years was now exposed. But instead of feeling relief, I felt hollow. The family I thought I had was gone, replaced by a truth that hurt more than any lie ever could. A week later, there was a knock on my apartment door. When I opened it, Dad stood there, holding a small envelope. He looked tired, older somehow, but calmer than I had ever seen him. "I owed you this," he said quietly, handing me the envelope. Inside was a check, the full amount he had tried to send months ago. I stared at it, unable to speak. "Dad, you didn't have to." "I did," he interrupted gently. "It was meant for you, not them. And I need to make it right." He sat down on my couch, taking a deep breath. "Alyssa, I let your mother's lies control me for too long. I should have seen what she was doing, how she twisted everything. I believed her stories because it was easier than facing the truth. And I'm sorry. I should have protected you." Hearing those words made something inside me break. For years, I had wanted him to see me, to really see me beyond the version Mom created. And now, here he was, looking straight into my eyes with regret and love mixed together. He told me that he had already filed for divorce. "It's over," he said softly. "I can't live in that house full of lies anymore." I nodded, not knowing what to say. There was sadness in his eyes, but also peace, like a man finally free from years of silent manipulation. He reached for my hand. "I've also updated my will," he continued. "You're the executor now. I trust you to do what's right, even when it's hard." Tears filled my eyes again. "Dad, I don't care about money or papers," I whispered. "I just wanted you to believe me." "I do now," he said firmly. "And I'll spend the rest of my life proving it." For a long moment, we sat there in silence. The weight of everything that had happened still hung between us, but something new had replaced it: honesty. For the first time in years, there were no lies, no favoritism, no pretending. Just truth. After he left, I sat there with the check in my hand. I didn't rush to cash it. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about finally being seen, finally being heard. Ethan called later that night. His name flashed on my screen again and again, but I let it ring until it stopped. Then another call. Then a text. "Please, Alyssa. We need to talk." But I didn't respond. Some things can't be fixed with words. The trust had been broken too many times, and no apology could undo what they did. I looked out the window, watching the city lights blur against the dark sky. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small or forgotten. I felt free, and that was worth more than any money could ever buy. Months passed, and life slowly began to settle into something new. Alyssa had moved into a small but beautiful home on the edge of town. It wasn't fancy, but every part of it felt hers: the walls, the garden, the quiet mornings. She bought it with the same money that was meant for her all along, the money that had once been stolen behind her back. As she unpacked the last of her boxes, she paused and looked around. There were no lies here, no shouting, no guilt. Just peace, the kind she had been craving her whole life. The house wasn't about wealth or revenge. It was about reclaiming what was taken from her. Not just the money, but her dignity and her sense of worth. Her father visited often now. Their conversations were warm, filled with honesty instead of tension. The walls between them had fallen, and for the first time, Alyssa saw her father as a man who was trying, really trying, to make things right. One evening, Robert called and invited her over for dinner. "Just us," he said with a soft laugh. No surprises this time. When Alyssa arrived, the table was set simply: 2 plates, a bottle of wine, and candles flickering in the quiet kitchen. There was no sign of her mother, no fake smiles, no tension in the air. Just calm. They ate slowly, sharing stories about work and memories from years ago that didn't hurt to talk about anymore. For once, it felt like a real family moment, one not built on lies or manipulation. After dinner, Robert raised his glass and said with a gentle smile, "This time I made sure you got what was yours." Alyssa looked at him, her eyes warm. "I did, Dad," she said softly. "And I also got something better, peace." He smiled, eyes misty. "You deserve that more than anything." Alyssa nodded. "I know." They clinked their glasses together. The sound was small, but it echoed with meaning, a quiet ending to years of chaos. Later that night, as she drove home, Alyssa thought about everything she had lost and everything she had gained. Her mother and brother had stopped reaching out months ago. Word around town was that Ethan's business had collapsed, and Linda had moved away after the divorce. Alyssa didn't feel sorry for them. Not out of hate, but because they had built their lives on lies, and lies always crumble. Her revenge wasn't loud. She didn't need to humiliate them or shout her truth from rooftops. Her revenge was simple, living freely, peacefully, and honestly. When she walked into her quiet home that night, she smiled. For the first time, she didn't feel like the forgotten child or the one left behind. She felt whole. They had tried to steal her chance at happiness. But in the end, Alyssa won. Not by fighting them, but by living the life they thought she'd never have.